Welcome to my channel. Tonight I want to talk about the Colorado football team, the Buffaloes, specifically about the recruits that signed letters of intent today and a possible problem with the team, with the recruits, and also the transfers that they've gotten in recently that I haven't talked about before. And then I want to talk about their 2024 schedule and what it looks like. But first, I want to thank you for coming here to watch my videos. Thank you for liking them. Thank you for commenting on them. Thank you for sharing them. And thank you especially to every one of you that has subscribed to my channel. I really do appreciate the traffic. I appreciate your attention. And I appreciate you being willing to give me a listen. So thank you to every one of you. Now, Colorado had 9 freshman recruits that were committed, but today they only signed 5. The others have gone other places, except for one who I'll talk about in a minute. But the ones that they have signed, that signed letters of intent today, are Draylon Miller, who's been compared to Terrell Owens. He's a big body receiver who runs through tackles. He's from Texas. He's a wide receiver, and he's 6 foot tall and 190 pounds. He's supposed to be really fast, too. And then Cameron McKell. Cameron is listed as an athlete. He's 6'1", 181. He'll probably eventually end up playing on both sides of the ball for Colorado. I imagine he'll start out possibly as a cornerback, but eventually be playing cornerback and wide receiver like Travis does now. And they'll have to develop. And I mean, freshmen, when they come in, they need to learn the college game. They signed Brandon Davis Swain, who's a defensive lineman. He's 6'3", 263. And Eric Brantley, who's a defensive lineman, who's 6'2", 250. And then they signed Micah Welch, who's a running back. And he is 5'9", 210 pounds. So he's a running back in the mold that Deion's been looking for, the short, stocky guy who can run through tackles. So we'll see how he fits into the running back room as time goes by. Now, everyone was excited about Jordan Seaton, the #1 offensive tackle in the nation. But Jordan did not sign a letter of intent today. There's rumors that he's going to be going to Maryland. And I have to tell you, I don't understand these kids. Apparently commitment means nothing to them. I really don't understand it. I'm serious. I mean, he went on undefeated, undefeated, whatever the name of that show is, and publicly announced to the nation that he was committing to Colorado. And yet now he's wavering. He posted a Twitter post of a picture of a man with sweat beads rolling off his forehead, with his finger hovering over 2 buttons, communicating, I guess, that he's trying to decide between 2 schools. But I thought he'd already made a decision, so I don't understand that. I really don't. I don't know. I don't know what goes through these young kids' heads. In my world, when I was at their age, if I made a commitment to something, and even now at my age, if I make a commitment to something, I'm committed. I'm not going to back out because circumstances change or something comes up. I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I already made a commitment. But these young kids, they change schools like they change shirts. It's amazing to me. I don't understand it. So that is what it is. They signed a total of 5 people out of the 9 that they had commits from. So almost half of them that committed, quote unquote, left, which is amazing to me. I'm sorry, they had 10 recruits, and now they have 5 that have signed letters of intent, and 1 that's up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen with him. I think it's probably likely he's leaving, because if he really wanted to come to Colorado, I think he would have already signed the letter of intent. So that is what it is. They have some new transfers that I haven't talked about before. Samuel Okunlola from Pitt, who is a defensive lineman. He's 6'4", 245, and rates .92, which is pretty high. That's a 4-star. Out of the transfer portal, they now have gotten 4 defensive linemen and 4 offensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, and 1 safety. So that's a pretty good haul, I would say. Samuel just committed the other day. The next one is Chidozie Nwankwo. And I have to tell you, this guy, I don't know what to make of him. I've watched his tape, and I've seen him in high school pancaking 2 players at the same time. So he's clearly strong. And I've seen him in pursuit, chasing down plays. So he's definitely athletic, but he's only 5'11". He's 5'11", and he weighs 295. I'm 5'10". I weighed 295 when I retired. Believe me, that was too much weight. Way too much. I've lost over 60 pounds so far, and I continue to lose weight, and I probably should get down to 180 or 190 eventually. But 5'11", 295, and when I've looked at him in pictures and in videos and stuff, he does not look fat. He looks a little bit chubby in the belly, but he does not look fat. So this guy's got to have massive legs and massive muscle all over his body. He likes to play in the middle of the defensive line and take on double teams constantly. That's what he enjoys doing. So it should be interesting if he makes it to the first team and starts playing in the games, which I suspect he will. It should be interesting to watch him play. He comes from the University of Houston. Then there's Anquin Barnes. He's coming from Alabama. He's a defensive lineman, 6'4", 315. That's good size for a defensive lineman, and since he was an Alabama recruit, I would think that he would be a pretty decent player. I haven't really researched a lot of these guys in depth to know, how much they played or anything, but I mean, if he's coming from Alabama, he's got to be decent, or they wouldn't have taken him to begin with. So you can hang your hat on that, I suppose. Then there's Walter Taylor, who I've talked about before, 6'7", 235, quarterback. That is big for a quarterback. And I've been seeing some comments about him that they think he may be included in some packages and plays where he can use his running ability to run over people. So it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate him into the scheme as the season begins and wears on. He's coming from Vanderbilt. Cordell Russell, who's a wide receiver, supposed to be really fast, coming from TCU. And he's 6'4", 210. That's really good size for a receiver, and he should be. I've read that he has really good hands, so I would think at 6'4", he'd probably be able to catch almost anything that's thrown high. And then Quincy Wiggins, who is a defensive lineman, comes from LSU. He's 6'5", 265. So another good-sized defensive lineman. And then Preston Hodge, who I've talked about all these guys before. Preston is a safety from Liberty. And I've talked about the twins, Destin and Keaton, Will Shepard, Shaman Mateer, all of these guys. And of course, I'll put the links in the description. So if you want to do your own research on these guys, you can. Let's look at the season that's coming up. It's an interesting schedule. If you notice, week 2 is at Nebraska and week 3 is at Colorado State. That's the same schedule that they played this year, except the locations are reversed. They're away games instead of home games. Excuse me. But they played Nebraska in the second game of this season, and they're playing them again in the second game of next season. And they played Colorado State in the third game and they play them again this year in the third game. So they start out at home playing North Dakota State. North Dakota State went 11-4 this year. They're in the Missouri Valley Conference. So they're an excellent team. They're obviously well coached and disciplined. They're going to be a challenge, but they are Missouri Valley, so they're not a Power 5 conference. So you would think that Colorado should be able to beat them. Nebraska is going to be a challenge. They just signed a really good quarterback, a 5-star. I think he was number 1 in his class, Dylan Raiola, who I believe came from Alabama. And he'll probably be the starting quarterback for Nebraska, so I expect that that's going to be a challenging game. And then, of course, they play Colorado State at Colorado State. Colorado State last year was 5-7. They're in the Mountain West, so again, that should be a victory, but these games, you never know. It depends on how they get up for them. Of course, they should get up for the Colorado State game, because if you remember this last year, the thing about it's personal. Well, now the wife of the coach of Colorado State has said some derogatory things about Shedeur. So that gives him extra motivation to beat them again. In the fourth game, they start playing away at Arizona Stadium against the Wildcats, and they begin their Big 12 schedule, which is a schedule of 9 games. Arizona State went 9-3 last year, and they beat Colorado by 3 points. So that should be a good game, should be competitive. I think Colorado can definitely win that game. It depends on how they play, just like every game. And then, of course, the next game is against Utah, and that's a home game, the first of 5 home games. They play Utah this year and lost by 6 points. So, again, that should be a competitive game. I think Colorado can win it, but they have to play well. Utah went 8-4 this year. The next game is at Folsom Field again, the second of 5, against the Baylor Bears. Baylor went 3-9 last year. 3-9. That's really something. Baylor used to be a really good team, but they're not anymore for some reason. And then the next game is Oklahoma State, and I'm glad they're playing Oklahoma State here at Folsom, because Oklahoma State is a tough team. They went 9-4 in the Big 12 last year. The next game is Kansas State. Kansas State is always tough. They've been tough for a long time. They went 8-4 in the Big 12 this last year. And then they play the Cincinnati Bearcats, their 5th game at home. And Cincinnati was 3-9 last year in Big 12. The next game and the next 3 games are away again, so they finished the season with 3 away games. They play the Kansas Jayhawks, who went 8-4 in the Big 12, at Lawrence, Kansas. They play the Texas Tech Raiders, who went 7-6 in the Big 12, at Lubbock, which, Texas Tech's reputation is gunslinger, so that's probably going to be a shootout, I would imagine. We'll see how that goes. And then they finished the season in Florida at the University of Central Florida Knights. And the Knights were 6-6 last year, so they were bowl eligible. I don't know if they're going to a bowl game, but they were definitely bowl eligible. So out of the teams that they're playing next year, there were 8 teams out of the 12 they play were bowl eligible last year. So it's going to be a challenging schedule. I think Colorado can probably go 8-4, maybe 9-3. Deion seems to think that they can make the playoffs. We'll see. They've got to get disciplined. They've got to get better on both sides of the ball, which I think they will because they've got more skilled players. They've got better talent than they had last year. But it still all depends on the mental. The mental is the biggest part of football. And it just depends on how they do. They got to be tough. They got to be tough mentally. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting year, that's for sure. And completely different from this year, because they won't be playing very many ranked teams at all. As always, I pray that you, my viewers, will be abundant, that you'll be healthy, and that you'll live a long life, and that God will keep you safe from harm. I pray that He'll do the same for every person that you love and everyone that you care about. And I pray that you will be anxious for nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, you will let your requests be made known to God. And the peace that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. This is the Vietnam Era Vet, out.